This week on the show, Na'Vi win Dreamhack Leipzig, Luminosity crack top 5 in the global rankings, and Games Academy win MLG's last chance qualifier. I'm Jack Westerman, joined by special guest host John Blue Mullen, and first of all this week we're going to kick things off with a 1.6 frag clip. This week's clip is Frag Executives versus H2K at the 2010 ESWC Finals, where Taz picks up a 1v4 clutch to win the round. Unfortunately, Taz's team would lose this match 11-19 and finish in 4th place at the tournament. Na'Vi would later emerge as champions, taking home $36,000. Our first topic this week is the Dreamhack Open Leipzig tournament, which took place, of course, in Leipzig, Germany, over the weekend of January 22nd to 24th. Now, Blue, this was a pretty big Dreamhack tournament. $50,000 up for grabs in first place, out of a total of about $85,000, I think. And as we look at Group A here, this was the group with Na'Vi, SK, Luminosity, FaZe, and I think it's fair to say Na'Vi made pretty light work of this bracket. Got off to that 16-3 win up in the top left over SK, and then in the winners game saw FaZe off 16-9. In your opinion, is that the expected result given the teams in this bracket?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, SK, again, they're still one of those, I guess you could call them tier 2 European teams that are trying to work their way up, going against Na'Vi, who's been in really good shape recently. Wasn't really expecting them to be able to put up a fight there. FaZe, I think, was expecting to be a little bit closer, but FaZe seemed off in general in this event, so they were able to press through them pretty easily, too, to take first place in that group.
Okay, now the second team we should talk about here, of course, is Luminosity. They were the team to finish in second place in this group. So, initially lost to FaZe over on the far left, which is surprising perhaps, given that they came back to beat them in the second place game over on the far right. In the meantime, they beat SK Gaming down there at 2-1 in the elimination game. So, Blue, given that Luminosity lost to FaZe initially, 16-9 on Inferno, then they came back to beat them 2-0 in the second place game. I mean, what do you chalk that up to? Is that just Luminosity being bad at Inferno? Is that taking time to warm up in the tournament? What's the turnaround we've seen here?
I think personally it was just obviously them getting a little bit warmed up for the event. Something was missing for them in that first FaZe game. Wasn't exactly sure what it was, but then as soon as they went up against SK and then bounced right back for that second place match in the group, we just saw everything kick into gear for that Luminosity roster like we're used to seeing. That's one of the things with this Luminosity roster is they're starting to look really, really good, but there are still some of those moments like what we saw back at like the ESL ESC Pro League finals where they do look a little bit weaker at times. And I think starting off this event, that's where it came into play. And to a certain degree at the finals too, there was a weak point, but we can talk about that in a bit. It was a good bounce back and we saw them really click it together for finishing out that group to get second place for it.
Absolutely, yes. And we will come back to talk about Luminosity because, of course, they did make it all the way through to the grand final. So that being said, let's jump over and take a look at Group B. And this was the group with Astralis. I still don't know how you pronounce that team's name. They are brand new. Dignitas, Virtus.Pro, and Mousesports. So I think the team I want to talk about here is Virtus.Pro. This is yet another disappointing group exit for them. And, we've seen players who have been great at previous tournaments, like Snacks finishing bottom of the team. They're dropping matches 16-5 to teams like Mousesports. Is this a regression, do you think, Blue, or is this a lack of focus? What's going wrong for Virtus.Pro in these tournaments?
I mean, the biggest thing you could easily sort of try and chalk it up to is the fact that this is like the first big event they're coming back to after all the teams have just taken this year-end break, so that could be a part of it. But more seriously, this, as you mentioned, this is not the first time where recently we've seen Virtus.Pro start to struggle quite a bit. They struggled a lot in some of the online leagues and whatnot. They haven't really been able to qualify for any of the big events that have been happening recently, with the exception of maybe one or two of them. And as we saw in that event itself, too, Snacks really dropped the ball. He had a negative 29 KD and only a 0.68 player rating in that matchup there. So unfortunately, with factors like that work against them, that combined as well with an absolutely crazy performance from Dignitas in that event did not make it a very imposing one. Not just against them too, but they also dropped pretty heavily to Mousesports, which I think was another big surprise to me. So unfortunately, Virtus.Pro just seemed really well and off at this event, and that worries me a little bit for their upcoming performances at other events this year as well.
How much does it hurt a team like Virtus.Pro to have such a key player like Snacks not show up to a tournament? Are they the kind of team that can ride through that, or is every player key?
I think personally that is so. I mean, we saw it with Luminosity to a certain degree in this event too. Taco was floating towards the bottom, not just in the finals, but also to a certain degree, sort of earlier on in the event too. We were seeing some games where he really wasn't up to snuff, but they were still able to carry through it. I think you can always deal with one player sort of being off his game a little bit, so long as the other four are still able to perform up to par. But it didn't really seem like that was the case for Virtus.Pro. It just seemed like the entire team was off, and something was not meshing very well to give them what they needed to press out of the group.
All right, well, unfortunately, Virtus.Pro did drop out of the tournament there. They finished in 4th place. And moving on to the bracket stage now, we'll see Astralis versus Luminosity and Na'Vi versus Dignitas in those opening 2 semi-final games, with Luminosity and Na'Vi progressing to the grand final over there on the right. Now, Blue, Astralis losing to Luminosity is one thing, but this is kind of a losing streak that they've been on for a while now. Do you think they're struggling? Do they still qualify for that spot as a global top 3 team, do you think?
I would say they're faltering, because here's the thing. They used to be doing really great at LANs, but as of late, it's becoming a very big problem too. As soon as they make it out of that group stage and when they get into the bracket stage, either towards the quarterfinals or the semifinals, as it was in this case, they really start to struggle with their matchups. And specifically, some of the key players really end up, again, like we saw with Snacks, some of their biggest players that they really need to perform end up going fairly badly, as we saw in this matchup for Device specifically. He wasn't really there. He had the lowest KD out of anybody on the team and the lowest rating down at 0.65. One player that, again, did show up at this LAN, like we saw at the last big LAN too, which was the ESL ESA Pro League LAN. Zipix was the only player that was really able to do well here. Dupree leading in second. He's actually been stepping up big time on LANs, but that's not what we're used to seeing. We're used to seeing players like Device, or Devi, I believe he's called now, Deve. I don't really know how to pronounce it yet, but we'll call him Device for simplicity's sake.
Sure.
But Device, unfortunately, just wasn't where he needed to be this event, and I fear that continues to hurt the team in every matchup these guys continue to go up against at LANs.
This roster, of course, also had a reputation for a long time as being a team that choked in the semi-finals. Do you think, and you know, they kind of said they'd got over it, but is that the kind of thing you ever get over? You know, if you've had a reputation for so long as choking in the semi-finals, surely it's got to be there in the back of your mind, right, when you meet a team like Luminosity.
It's definitely a mental thing, and it's not easy to get over at all. That's like some deep subconscious psychiatrist kind of crap right there. So I have a feeling that we're going to continue to see that trend for a very long time with Astralis, but if they can get over it, then we can see players like Device really kick it up in those more important matches, then maybe we'll see a championship for them someday.
All right, absolutely. And moving on to the grand final, I've just got a couple of more questions before we jump to our next topic. So again, this was yet another win for Na'Vi. They beat Luminosity 2-0 in the grand final. And it's really capping off an excellent 3 to 4 month run that these guys have had. They won, this tournament, Dreamhack Leipzig. They won IEM San Jose. They finished second at Pro League Season 2, lost to Fnatic, finished second in the Star Series finals, Dreamhack Cluj finals. Really, you know, they've been on a hell of a run. What do you chalk this up to for the CIS guys?
Honestly, Na'Vi have just been on point when it came to quite a few of their crucial players recently. Obviously, you've got Guardian stepping up as he normally was, but there's another player that may have been sort of on the edge a little bit as we got sort of towards the middle end, towards the end of 2015 here, but he's, again, come back and he's been shining quite a bit here in some of the last couple of big lands, and that's Flamey, who is oftentimes sort of the support player for Guardian. So if Guardian's on his game, which always happens for the most part, say it's about 90% of the time, if Flamey's also on his game and if he's keeping Guardian alive, which is often his job in quite a few of the maps these guys play on, that's just going to be an unstoppable combo that you cannot get past. And that's what we saw here in this event.
All right, well, let's leave that there. That was Dreamhack Leipzig, of course, took place over the weekend of January 22nd, and congratulations to Na'Vi, who won. Now, before we move on to topic number 2, let's jump over to Missharvey, who's going to tell us a fact about CS history.
Thanks, Jack. Did you know that the Molotov's grenade is not the first time the Counter-Strike developers have experimented with new types of grenade? Back in 2004, Counter-Strike Condition Zero was supposed to include a gas grenade, which counter-terrorists could use to create a cloud poisonous gas on the map. The gas would damage any player that walked through it and make them cough, which would reveal their position to the enemy team. Terrorists could avoid the damage by buying a gas mask, another item that was supposed to be in the game. Unfortunately, development of Condition Zero was badly delayed, so both the grenade and the mask were cut from the final version of the game. Today, only the menu and the icons remain in the game files.
Thank you very much, Steph. Blue, poisonous gas grenade. Is that something you think Counter-Strike's missing these days?
No, not at all. Fine.
We'll stick with the Molotov, you think?
Yeah.
All right. Seems to do the job. Okay, our second story this week is, well, 2 MLG Minor qualifiers, actually. So we've got the Last Chance qualifier for MLG Americas, which was hosted online by Civo. And we've also got the CIS qualifier, which took place over there in, well, the Commonwealth of Independent States, over there on the eastern edge of Europe. So let's start with the MLG Columbus Last Chance North American bracket. All right, well, 2 other teams we should talk about in this bracket are Optic and Winterfox. So, and well, I guess notably the fact that they didn't manage to make much of an impact here, right? Optic were, I guess, most known for their E-League win. They looked really good recently in that tournament. And Winterfox, of course, had Pith and Devilwalk until recently. But both of these teams couldn't get past, well, I guess neither won the tournament, but Winterfox specifically couldn't get past Games Academy. Is it a surprise, do you think, that these 2 teams have finished where they finished? I don't want to say didn't show up, but I was definitely expecting Optic to beat Winterfox because Winterfox is still at that point where they're really struggling to get their team sort of together as a single 5-man roster and work together like tactically and not just have 5 fraggers on a team doing what they want to. Yeah.
So I was a bit surprised to see that one. But this is the big problem with Optic too, and I brought this up before when I was doing the analysis test last week at the MLG, or technically it's 2 weeks ago now, at the MLG Minor. Is that Optic has probably one of the biggest inconsistency issues out of all of the North American teams. In that 1 week, they can just be absolutely bang on to be beating the European teams like we saw at that Civo LAN a couple months ago. And then the next week, well, this happens and they're beat by Winterfox. So that's going to be something that they're going to have to work on over the next couple of weeks. But for Games Academy, not at all. I think I was actually expecting Games Academy to take this one. The Brazilians are here. They're here to stay. And I hopefully expect to see a lot more of them coming over to the North American circuit as they have a lot to offer to this side of Counter-Strike.
Okay, and just before we jump over to the CIS discussion, the last team I want to touch on here in North America is TSM. So obviously TSM parted ways with their European roster. They picked up this North American team. And Blue, did you expect to see them go completely winless here in this tournament?
I mean, I honestly did not expect them to win it. Maybe taking a set off Winterfox would have been in the cards. Winterfox seemed pretty on point this tournament, obviously them getting past Optic. But the problem with Team Solo Mid is they're going to take a lot of time to develop simply because they have a lot of newer talent on this team that in recent history at least has not been experiencing professional level play. So you've got people like Vice and Sick who are coming off of that old Denial roster, and you're going to put them with people like Semphis and FNS, 2 very well-known names in the North American community as far as the professional level is concerned. So it's going to take a while for those personalities to mesh and for those 2 players to really get used to that high-level play. And I don't really expect any big titles coming for this team anytime in the near future or even sort of longer future. I'm saying it's going to take a couple of months, to be completely honest.
All right, and just before we wrap up this MLG Minors topic, we should take a look at the CIS brackets on screen just now. So I don't know what your CIS knowledge is like here, Blue, but mine is fairly non-existent. So in this bracket, we've got Arcade, Rebels, Gambit, Method. Is there anything at all you can tell us about this bracket?
So about this bracket, unfortunately, not so much. It was actually hard to find coverage for this event, so wasn't able to catch all that much of it. But for Gamma taking it, at least in my eyes, that was absolutely expected. This has been the new hyped roster coming out of the CIS region. A lot of really good individual talent coming onto this team. This is Doge's new team. Hoocher is also on this team. Quite a few other names that I can't exactly recall off the top of my head at this point, but I have definitely spectated them before, and I know that you can expect some very, very good things to them. Probably easily breaking into the tier 2 of European teams very, very soon. Maybe tier 1 later on in this year.
All right, and just before we leave this whole topic, the minor qualifiers, I guess it's exciting at the very least to see such a global major, right? We've never quite had qualifiers of this scale. The fact that they're getting minors to actual qualifiers to the actual event, right? This is pretty exciting, is it not?
I absolutely agree. And the fact that we're seeing more and more Asian coverage as well, just not even with the major itself. It's great that we're seeing it. We've got IM Taipei coming up in I think it's just over a week from now, or possibly this weekend.
Yeah.
Got that coming up very, very shortly as well. So that's going to be great to see some of the Asian teams clashing with some more well-known teams too. Like Renegades is going to be facing up against them, so that's going to be a great test. We saw, I think it was Cyber Zen playing off recently at the Starletter event that has happened over a week ago too. So it's really great to see that region starting to bloom. The South Americans, even though due to the visa issues, we weren't actually able to see them play at the Americas Minor. Hopefully that is going to resolve itself next time. And some of the other Brazilian teams like Alien Tech, the new Keat Stars lineup and whatnot, we're going to see those guys coming up here as well to face off against some of the bigger guys in North America. It's a really great time. We've got so many new regions blooming, and it's honestly one of the greatest things about CS right now is that we haven't exhausted the entire world's talent pool just as of yet. We're going to see these new regions blooming, and everybody's going to want to know, not just in like this games community, but other games communities as well, what's going on with these other regions. It's great.
Last but not least, I've got some quickfire questions for you, Blue. So, quick as you can, give me your thoughts on the following news stories from the week. First of all, G2, or the team formerly known as G2, have been signed by FaZe and secured a wildcard spot in ESL's Pro League.
So the wildcard pickup is not surprising at all. I think pretty much everybody that follows the Pro League pretty much saw that coming, as they were the only sort of top-tier European team that wasn't in the mix just as of yet. The fact that they got picked up by FaZe, again, that as well, not super surprising. It was either going to be them that managed to get picked up by it or the XTSM roster, but they decided to form their own organization. So that's the path they went down, and I guess FaZe decided to pick up G2 instead. So that's how that went, and again, not very surprising at all.
All right, over in America, Team CLG announced that they signed Fugly to the roster.
And this one as well, I think the fact that Fugly was actually removed from Team Liquid is still a little bit surprising to me, but obviously that's done and done with, so we don't talk about that too much. Now that they picked him up for CLG, I think this is a great pickup for these guys, and I'm very interested to see how dominant CLG is going to be and whether they can keep fighting to be within like the top 3 of the North American teams now. I think it's very good prospects to do it, assuming Fugly doesn't have some of those LAN issues that we've seen from him in the past.
Absolutely. And last but not least, Renegades were given the final ESL Pro League wildcard spot in North America.
Again, as far as I'm concerned, basically saw this one coming. Everybody was like, oh, when is Renegades going to be playing in some of these big leagues like Pro League and whatnot, or are they just going to be participating in the E-League? So I think that one as well is pretty straightforward. Everybody saw that was going to happen, so no surprises for me on that pickup there.
That's it for this week. I'm Jack Westerman, joined by John Blue Mullen.
And Jack, maybe not me. We'll be back next Wednesday with another episode of PopFlash.